All right, welcome. We are back for another week of Peach Pit. We have some exciting content with another week of competition uh, after this Gwinnett event in week 3. We'll be talking about a little bit of some Gwinnett review, as I just mentioned, as well as talking about some week 4 content for Hartsville as well as Carrollton. We got another double up weekend for 2 events going on, one in South Carolina, one in Georgia. As well as some interesting content about what we view as some of the top robots in the district. So we'll get to that later. But to get started, we have to make the usual disclaimer. Any views or opinions shared on this show are solely that of the individual contributor and do not reflect the views of Peach Pit, any FRC team, First, Georgia First, South Carolina First, or any of their affiliates and sponsors. So the idea behind the show is to serve as an FRC talk show that focuses primarily on the Peachtree District. We're going to be talking about a variety of topics, so don't be surprised if you hear us drop some hot takes. Ultimately, we're hoping to provide some entertaining and engaging discussions. We're going to go around and do some introductions. I'm Kellen Hill. I'm lead mentor for Team 1746 Auto.
I'm Thomas Priego. I'm a strategy mentor for Team 1746 Auto.
I'm Brian Carlson with Ignite Robotics 6829. I'm a strategy mentor.
I'm David Allred, drive coach and CAD mentor of 4451 Robots Garage out of South Kakalaki.
I'm Sid Thoda. I'm lead mentor for Team 1771 North Gwinnett Robotics.
And we're happy to have Sid join us. As mentioned in some prior episodes, last year we had done a neat thing for having on like a member of the winning alliance of the previous week's event, which we've done good jobs and bad jobs at getting people on, but we're happy to have Sid on. I know we had Chris on last year from 1771, as well as some other team members from around the district. So I think it's always good to mix things up a little bit and get some unique perspectives compared to our usual ramblings. So, but with that said, we'll go ahead and jump into some thoughts here. Week 3 just wrapped up. We had our Gwinnett event. I guess the 4 of the 5 of us were there with competing teams for Auto, Ignite, and 1771. So we got some, all of our first time competing. So I think we got some interesting new perspective on this season rather than just watching the streams. Yeah. But what is everybody's take on this Gwinnett event?
It was fun. I had fun. It posed some interesting challenges. I know at least for my team, we showed up to the event and everything promptly broke. Though
to be
I realize
fair, Thomas, a lot
that
of those
statement
things were never
implies
working
that
before the event.
that those things would have worked at some point. So it proved some interesting challenges. The venue had some quirks like all venues do, but overall I think it was a really good event for the most part. Alliance selection was a little wonky, as we'll get into later, but other than that, I have very few complaints.
I will go ahead and give a quick shout out while we're here. Before we get into too much other conversation, we're going to give a huge shout out to the winners of the event. We had 1771 North Gwinnett, 4188 Columbus Space Program as their first pick, followed up with Wiredcats 2415 as their third bot. So congratulations on the win this weekend in Gwinnett. We also had finalists 4509 Mechanical Bulls, 1683 Techno Titans, and 8577. Which I'm going to do some furious the Blue Alliance thing and just remind myself.
Georgia Cypher Academy champions.
There we go. Thanks for the fill in there, Thomas. We also had then an Impact Award go to 7538 Metal Mountain. That was one of our Alliance members, so congratulations to them on their Impact Award win, or Inspire Award win. What am I doing?
No, it's Impact.
It's
Impact.
It is Impact?
Yeah, no, you got it right.
I thought it was the Inspire Award.
No, that's the FTC.
Well, congratulations on whichever one you won.
Not having I as their first two. I mean, anyway.
I think it's awesome. I do some kind of tracking of who's winning these awards year over year and season after season, and it's I think always awesome to see some new teams floating to the top of those awards list and earning those awards as they do. So congratulations to the Middle Mountain on that win. We had an Engineering Inspiration Award win for 1746. Go Team Auto. Good work for any of our auto listeners out there. We had a Rookie All-Star awarded to 9057 GIRL Girl. We got to play with them during this event, and they were just rocking it. They tried using the excuse of, well, this is our first time. But it was, in a lot of ways, it's everybody's first time for either competing the first time or having new student members on your team. But this group really rocked it and had a good time. And you could tell their team was set up to really enjoy the process and have a good time competing. And it seemed like they learned a lot throughout the event. So a big shout out to that Rookie All-Star win. All right. Any other comments then for Gwinnett? I know there's a lot of conversation to be had here. I think one interesting thing to point out is there was a lot of hype leading into Gwinnett, I think, compared to some of the other district events, especially if you're looking at like prior years ELOs or rankings and things like that, that Gwinnett had quite an elevated status, I think, compared to some of the other events. And there were a lot of expectations. Do you think Gwinnett lived up to the hype?
No.
I'd say, yeah, I think it was the strongest one so far, right? I expected that we would probably have a couple more alliances that would execute well. Some of the teams were very solid and just didn't get where they wanted to get to. I know we were struggling there for a little bit, trying to get some things done. So I'm sure everybody else was. It shows you it's just a first event for a lot of the teams that are playing there. So although teams look great at the end of last year, we still have that first event jitters to shake out.
I think a lot of the heavy hitters from last year came into this event with obvious gremlins they were still trying to work out, and none of them really performed up to the aspirations of their robots. I think each team left this event with various ways to grow. I know with Auto specifically, we have a lot that we're looking to improve upon. So from that end of just, from what I expected of, oh, this is going to be crazy. We're going to have so many link RPs, this is mini state, to compare to where it was very obvious that there were clear growing pains for almost everyone involved was unexpected. And it was
I think we were in for that. I think after you saw Albany, I think you could tell that, yeah, our team list looks stronger, but I think there's going to be some teams struggling. And I guess this is where things will get really interesting, is to see how teams learn from this, because I'm like looking at Albany for 4188 starting out that event, hardly being able to score for being a pusher bot, winding up being the number 2 overall pick, I think, and being finalists. Very similar story to here at Gwinnett. They started out much stronger, 2nd overall pick yet again, wound up as winners. But they've improved tremendously over 2 events. I think we're going to see a lot of the same for a lot of these Gwinnett teams. So I think there's going to be a lot of room for growth, like you said, but I think we've already seen some of that improvement from the likes of 4188 and I think 1683 are the two of the stronger bots that have now competed for a second time.
4509 also competed. They're done until state.
Yeah, very good. Good point. That would be another one of those top bots.
Yeah, so I was trying to warn you a little bit. So you kind of at this point, well, y'all are past your first event now, but at this point, you kind of have to play the robot you have, not the robot you want to have. So you're in this particular game with the 2 different game pieces, and they're completely different, and you're shooting for something strong. You're going to have some whiffs, and you're going to have to deal with it and just adapt and play. And again, the hardest thing about playing is making sure you don't hit your own partner, and so, but I think I guess everybody's played their first event now. Is that right?
Yep.
I can
Were
do
there
a
a
quick
couple-
check while you're
Er,
doing that, but
I think so.
I think there was one team signed up for 3 events, but it would have been Gwinnett, and then weeks 4 and 5, so they would have met that criteria as well.
Gotcha.
So, yeah, I think everybody's played.
So, all right. So everybody's got the shock of reality of this game, and the chaos that happens, and it just happens.
One thing I noticed this year over last year is I feel like there were a lot fewer like major mechanical failures. People weren't bursting into piles of parts quite as much. As well as it seemed like teams in general were playing a lot more consistently.
Yeah.
You think
So-
this year teams were playing more consistently, or you're saying last year?
This year, like across the board, the performance outputs seem to be a lot more consistent, and that's maybe because just how the scoring works and like how you interact with the game pieces this year.
Yeah, and I saw that. If you think about last year, we went in and and mechanisms in 1771 were putting up like mechanisms doing around 16 game pieces, and then you guys were putting up close to around 20, and then everybody else was down at that like 7 to 10 range. We didn't see that here. It wasn't as if one team was doing 10 and everybody else was doing 5. A lot of the teams sort of clumped up around that 4 to 6 range during teleop, which if you had a bad matchup, you weren't going to be able to outgun that, and you're just going to have to just realize, do the best you can. The other thing that I noticed is we wanted to make some improvements in our bot, and all of us here, this is our first dual state competition, right? Where we're 2 state jurisdiction, and we're back to the 25 match or 25 team competitions, and the turnaround times are brutal. You don't have time to take and do a lot of improvements. We want to make a software fix, and we're like, we got 2 matches and we're back out there again, right? So we got used to those 34 and 35 team matches where you had a good little bit of time where you could do some programming, do some stuff, and then get back out there. So you just have to plan accordingly in what you try to work on.
Yeah, we had issues with that, and we'll be much more aware of that going into Macon, knowing that, all right, if there's a 3-match turnaround time, there's no adjustments in that period unless absolutely critical. It's just systems test, recompress, new battery, get back to the field. There's no time for improvement during that period.
Yeah, and I think some teams, and us specifically, I think we could have definitely benefited from it, because we had a couple bursts of it seemed that our match schedule was 3 matches of 3-match turnarounds, little bit of a break, where it was just sprints. And I definitely feel like we could have probably taken advantage of, okay, maybe our robot is so broken right now, let's skip this middle match, try and get some breathing room. Kellen is shaking his head here, but I know I'm right.
So I will point this out. If you look at the last 3 alliances, 1, 2, and 3, they're the list of people that had the most time on their bot, right? 1771 and us were at DE a lot, even though we were working through things. And 4509, 4188, and 1683 all had a previous competition. So it's all about knowing how to run your bot.
Yeah,
And I think that goes especially for 4509 and 1683. You could tell just from watching, they know their machine. They've got it down.
And they know how to play the game. I know I've watched plenty of matches so far, but just knowing how to play the game by playing it is just so much more significant instead of this is what they're doing here. We're going to do this in the match. We should, follow this strategy. being able to actually practice doing it is such a big deal. So those guys definitely came into the event with a lot more significant leg up than I anticipated.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so that's where, like, season long, we're going to see some interesting chases to see, all right, these teams have established themselves. Are they continually putting their foot on the gas? I know Howard from 1683 would like us to say, like, oh, 1683, they got a lot of work to do if they want to stay at the top. Stay at the top. So, but and this is where I think it's important that you not stay complacent, because this is where every team's working on improving their robot. I mean, yeah, it's great that you're at the top right now, but you got to know that a lot of teams are in the hunt for improving their robot and going to be on your heels by the time district champs comes around. If you've already competed twice, or if you've just competed once, to say, all right, what are you working on for your next event to step up your game?
Yeah, and I think this year is going to kind of end up being it kind of sort of like how 2019 was, where Walton came out of the gate swinging, soloed a rocket week 2, and all of a sudden you saw teams claw their way up of being able to do that. And I think this year that is going to be similar in that respect, where you have these early people sitting in pole position, and it's just what teams are able to claw their way back up to be there at the top. And for the complacency point, if you want to see a prime example of something going wrong in that regard, just look at Auto in 2018. We were like, won our first event, finalists in our second event. We're like, we got this thing. We don't really need to worry too much. And then we missed out on Worlds by 5 district points. So you very much, even though you are ahead, this is for you, Howard. You want to keep your foot on the gas. You want to keep performing, because, just because you're good now, you got a lot of teams that have a lot of time to get better. 6919 has played once, and they don't play again to week 5, and everyone knows that they're sitting in their shop just doing who knows what. So every team needs to be prepared and ready for what's to come.
Well, that, and I know every team's going to set their individual goals, but especially if you've been a winner of an event and finalist of an event, and are really happy with your robot, and you're one of the top bots in PCH, is set your standard a little higher and say, well, what do I need to do to be competing with the best robots in the world? So make sure you're getting out there and watching some match video of what those top robots are doing, for either autonomous mode or how fast they're doing their cycles, or what match strategy they're using, to start looking at those and saying, we need to play against those guys, to just elevate that expectation and standard of your own team. So
yeah, one of the things we talked about tonight at our recap, or at our leads meeting, was, what do we want to improve, right? What do we want to repair? What do we want to improve? What do we want to do and accomplish? And we're signed up for Walton's DE for this weekend, and we're talking about all these different changes, and it's like, well, anything we choose, we only have so much time, there's going to be something we can't do, and we make sure that we put our energy where we really felt we needed the best bang for the buck. And so we're like, we really value that DE time this weekend, right? So everything was sort of put around that for, okay, what can we do so that's a priority, because that's what we need to do to get better.
Yeah. We had a very similar discussion of, there were clear changes that needed to be made, and of, okay, we're going to DE and doing stuff on Sunday. So any and all changes we need to do need to be done at end of practice Saturday, just so we can make it there. So hopefully we're not biting off more than we can chew. I don't think we are, but your teams do need to be chasing that continuous improvement, or that they'll get caught and beat by the teams that are.
Agreed. Let's focus on wrapping up any other conversation we have on this Gwinnett event for some experience. I know we'll get a little bit more into that. I think PCH-wide robotics, or robot competitive sphere kind of, or stratification, I guess, for where those tiers are. But in the meanwhile, I think Gwinnett did escalate the game a bit. We did see the very first 4RP match in PCH, which we managed to be in. We were the defense spot. We could have scored cubes, but I think we in talking with 4509 and IHOT, came to the consensus that we'd play 4509, who is one of the top bots at the event, obviously, as would be offense, and then IHOT would be the second highest scoring robot. We could score as well, but we figured we'd put a bigger ding in the opponent's score, especially facing 4188 and 1261. But yeah, it was cool to see getting that 4RP match. Obviously, the other alliance got their co-op link, so that helped us only need 4 along with the double balance. So cool to see that. I hope we see some more of that in coming weeks. But I expect the next time we'll see any more substantial amount of it will come at district champs, where we really get all those top bots in the same event, and an increased likelihood of those links happening. And
not only that, there was another match, and I don't know if they recall, but on Quals 2, 4 links were achieved. It just so happened that the community bonus wasn't achieved. So there have been a couple instances of the condition
that close,
of a conditional condition being met. But other than that, I am very excited to see what happens in the future.
So I want to point out that in Quals 4, we had a nice pairing of 6829, 4509, and 1683. And there are 15 game pieces scored, and we only got 3 links. So pay attention to where you place your cubes and cones.
Yeah, it was what I think, Thomas. If I think we wound up 5 and 7 on the weekend, but wound up with 19 RPs. So only 10 of those came from getting wins, and the remaining 9 came from either balancing, and then the 1 bonus one then for I guess 8 for balancing, and then 1 for getting the links. So get all those bonus RPs that you can, people.
Yeah.
But with that being said, balancing RPs, those have continued to rise. At Albany, we saw about 20% of opportunities converted for balancing at the end of the match. Anderson, we hit a 36%, as well as that same weekend, a 25% at Dalton. So a general upward trend. And then at Dalton, we wound up hitting 43. So we're
at Gwinnett, we hit 43.
Gwinnett.
I said Dalton again, didn't I?
Yes.
Yeah. Gwinnett, we wound up hitting 43. So we're on that upward trajectory. So it'll be interesting to see. I think teams are obviously catching on to the balancing strategy and getting some more practice at that, doing that autonomously. I think
my only surprise was auto balancing wasn't quite as high as I thought it would be. It looked like some people were getting sort of stuck. I don't know.
We did have some commentary. I think even Techno Titans mentioned it to us, where we wound up trying to run our balancing on the field for the first time. Is that they had mentioned that I think the blue side of the field was different from the red side of the field, and that they worked perfectly fine on the one side of the field and on the practice field, but on the other side of the field, they'd run into it and just either stop or push that side of the bridge flat. That there was some difference in the bridges that they felt was causing this issue.
It looked like it, from me as an outside observer, that there was something different going on there. That things that looked like it should easily go up the bridge, it would kind of get stuck. Unless you kind of whacked it, and most people in autonomous are not doing that.
Yeah, I definitely felt like, just from observing, that the bridges seem to have more resistance than what we at least have been used to. So that was weird. It also seemed that there were the condition where you run into it and then you shove your side in and raise it, that didn't happen as much at this event, so as compared to previous ones. So it was just a little, the bridges were a little wonky from what I was able to see.
Yeah, I was a little disappointed in that, because you always should have performed much better than what it looked like.
Yeah. And we had a couple field issues with the protective cover of the wiring coming over top of the sidewall to the blue side. I know we drove by and hit there. I mean, there are some loud crashes between bots. So this field is going to take a beating. It's almost going to be as bad as 2016. Driving over those defenses, right?
Yeah.
As a matter of fact, we actually have video of the platform was basically tilted because our bot was on it and it was broken down in the wrong spot. And we actually had 2 broken robots. We had to actually yeet over the platform, and we got video of the air underneath us as we came down. And I'm like, please stop doing that. I like my swerve modules too much.
Yeah, 1771 stayed after to take down the field, and we got to see some of the charge station pieces. And there were a couple bits that were pretty noticeably bent. They definitely took a pretty good beating over the course of the event.
Yeah, that's what it looked like. It looked like something was sticking with the bridges.
Yeah, so hopefully that's something that's addressed and maintained by our FTA and first crews.
I'll be setting up the field at Hartsville. I'll take a look at that because I set up the bridges at Anderson, and they're very specific ways to set them up because those hinges can stick if you don't get it right. If you don't get it aligned right, you just can't just bolt it together. You got to be really particular about it.
Yeah, it was nice at least to not get them wedged up. I don't recall seeing any of that happen this weekend.
No, they alternate the hinges, so that doesn't happen anymore.
But yeah.
Okay, so that's been permanently fixed.
But you still have to make sure they are really straight. And there's these weird cutouts in the sheet metal, and if the sheet of metal or the carbon steel pivot brackets don't slide into the sheet metal slots just right, it'll jam. It's hard to describe, but there's a little teeny cutout for these wedges to slide into. And so if they're off I'm talking about 1/8 of an inch. If they're off, they will jam into that slot.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know why I first cut them so tight.
Yeah, this is a difficult field to put together correctly. There are a lot of very precise components. All of the placement is really, really precise. At least the specification for it is very, very precise, and actually meeting those specs is pretty difficult.
Yeah, it is. So anyway, I'll be setting up a field this weekend. I will pay attention to see if I can get that right.
And we'll go ahead and use that as a transition to our Hartsville preview. What do you got for us over in South Carolina this weekend?
Hartsville preview, otherwise known as Anderson 2.0. So it's still again a heavily attended event by South Carolina teams. I think there's 29 teams signed up. I think we're going to only have 28. And from Anderson, we had 3 Georgia teams at Anderson event. We will have no Georgia teams at Hartsville. However, we have another border hopper joining us, T-Rex, 4936 from Charlotte, North Carolina, is jumping the south of the border to play at our event. And they must be gluttons for punishment because they've already played their 2 district events. They're playing this week 4, and then their district champ is week 5. So this must be like a tune-up for them. So I'm excited to see maybe they've got some new tricks up their sleeve they want to try before they head to their district champs. They've already played, looks like they were on the 4th alliance at both of their 2 events. One is captain and one is first pick. So they're probably trying to amp their way up their own alliance ranking on their side to see if they can, play in the 1, 2, 3 slot. It'll be interesting to see what they do. We also have 2 teams that did not play at Anderson that played, South Carolina teams that played in Georgia. The Biting Bulldogs, 8137 out of the Low Country. They were the 11th ranked robot at Albany, and then it ended up being the 6th alliance captain. And then 1758, the Technomancers played Dalton. They placed fourth and were the first pick of the 2nd alliance. So they did quite well there. And so I'm expecting those 2 teams, they have their experience now under their belt. So everybody coming in, has played either at Anderson. So most of the teams have seen each other except for these 3. And so it'll be interesting to see kind of how it shakes out. I think it's going to be the luck of the qualification bracket as to how the final rankings end up. I'm not sure. I haven't seen a lot of teams, or they haven't explained to me any improvements they've made, but I haven't been in contact with them. I know our team, when we played Anderson, we had no automation, and so we decided to play mid-low. We have all our automation now that we're doing it. This is a kind of a tune-up event for district champs, so we're going to be bringing out a full automation and playing top to bottom instead of bottom to top. I believe 1102 has also got some more tricks up their sleeve that they've been planning. Not sure they're going to bring everything out at this event, but I expect them to be much more consistent than they were at the first event, and therefore probably a good shot at making the first or the alliance captain on the number one alliance. There were several other notable teams that are kind of all packed together. The surprise picks that came out of Anderson was Viper Drive 3490 was the captain of the number 7 alliance that made it to finals along with their partner Technical Terminators 1051. So those robots I'm expecting to try to push their way up the ranking system along with Metal in Motion 343 and the 1287, the Aluminum Assault. Aluminum Assault, this is, again, probably their best robot I've seen them put together. And so I know they're going to be gunning for it to move up in the rankings and make some noise at this event, either shooting for, a win or a finalist slot. I don't know how this going to, like I said, I don't know how it's going to shake out because I haven't seen anybody, give me any upgrades of what they've done. But I expect everybody with the experience under their belt will be much better at the balancing game than they were, and they were pretty good at Anderson because several teams got auto balancing working at Anderson, and so I'm expecting a rise in the auto balance. I'm expecting a rise in the in-game balance because they've now figured out that game, and of course the cycling and working together that'll improve as people shake out what they're doing with their robot. So I'm looking forward to it. This will be a Friday-Saturday event. Anderson was a Saturday-Sunday, so we tried both formats just to test them out. This event is hosted by Coker College up in Hartsville, and it's the first time we've used this venue, so it'll be interesting to see how it works out.
Yeah, gotcha. That's always an interesting thing to figure out. Yeah, where's the practice field at? How long does it take to get to queuing for as fast as match turnaround times?
Right. Yes. Yeah. It'll be
getting the lay of the land. Yeah.
Is there cell service?
It's going to be tighter than the Anderson event. It's just physically a smaller building, but again, it's a fairly small event. I think we'll be fine.
Gotcha. That was something else weird we had with Gwinnett is that I felt like the speakers in the gym were soft enough that as like the drive team, I'd like hear faintly out of my ear like, and drivers ready in 3, 2. I'm like, what? Yeah. Just for yanking drivers back. I'm like, we weren't asked for thumbs up or anything. It was quiet enough you couldn't hear that they were doing the countdown. So they just weren't looking for readiness for the driver stations, which was a bit frustrating.
We heard the music really well, but the actual AV about the start of match stuff we could barely hear.
So I'll give a quick shout out to post-event surveys. I know at least the lead mentors for each team get a link. I don't know if it's everybody that's in your first roster will get it or not, but make sure you take that seriously and give them feedback because it's hard to expect change if you're not providing feedback. So
the one small thing I'd love is a really small thing, but it's really impactful is having the full field view in the pit area instead of the action shot view. I know a lot of people that are in the pits really can't go over there to watch it, and having that full field view would be a nice thing to have.
Agreed. And there's been a lot of discussion kind of on sound levels in FRC over the past couple of months, and Gwinnett actually was a very pleasant surprise for me there. Yeah. I spent a lot of my time in the stands and not feeling like I needed earplugs, especially when like the last event we were at was I want to say Galileo Division Worlds, where it was like on the threshold of pain to be in the stands. We went out and bought and distributed earplugs. So that was very nice. Hopefully there's a happy medium there where everyone can still hear all of the announcements, but it's not deafening as it often has been in the past.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, good point there. But yeah, looking forward to our second South Carolina event. I think it's going to be really interesting because it's pretty much we've pretty well maintained the line of Georgia teams, South Carolina teams with just the one or two crossovers. That I think it'll be really interesting leading up to district champs of when those teams all get mashed together to say, all right, now you're playing together.
Yeah, so it's kind of hard to judge, the level of competitiveness. I mean, just as an outside observer, I mean, I'm a savvy old dude, and so when I can kind of see the picking order, which we're going to talk about later in the show. So I think I'm seeing where this thing is headed.
So the question I'm going to have about the second event in South Carolina is teams are going to start getting their second play for the first time, right?
Yes, that's
And
correct.
how that sort of feels for the team, what was sort of different about for them. I'm guessing they probably had twice as much fun, hopefully, right?
Yeah.
But it'd be interesting
yeah,
to see how they go.
Less than half of the state would play a second event. So back in the two regionals. So we played two regionals always, and so maybe I had the stats. I don't have them on my fingertips, but maybe 40% of the state played a second event. So like 60% of the state will now be experiencing a second event for the very first time.
Yeah.
But ready, set, play. Hopefully you're got to keep that robot together.
Yeah, I made any commentary at the as we were wrapping up pits and like packing stuff up. I'm remembering how painful it was during the bag and tag era for like how critical that time was to say like if you're changing something or if you're gonna need any part for your practice spot or anything of that nature, you need to be ripping it off the robot right now, or you need to be working on the robot right now. That you had to then do anything, get it in the bag and signed off on by the event close. But yeah, some teams would lose out in eliminations and just go back to their pits and immediately start working away on the robot.
Exactly. Yeah. Back in the good old days, right?
Yep. Yeah. We had I think we mentioned it the other week for the hilarity of one of our students being new enough to not even know what bag and tag was. So it's yeah.
And on the topic of bags, shout out to 1746 for loaning us a bag. It was raining on the Labor Day for Gwinnett, and wooden robots don't like the rain. One of the reasons we were so late to actually showing up with the robot and why the robot traveled differently than the pits is rain and wooden chassis, not the most compatible.
And Sid, if you could let us know what was your final weight at inspection?
I think it was 121, 123. It was up there. We had a lot more breathing room than we thought. We brought a dehumidifier. We were ready. We got the damp red, but ended up not needing it, thankfully.
Yeah. Andy Baker was walking through the pits and he saw that he goes, they brought a dehumidifier. Yeah, it's a wooden robot. They're overweight at Worlds and they're always prepared. They got the old big bag to take with.
Yeah, that there's always been a joke of, oh, if 1771 is too good, let's just start bring the humid. My dad has a humidifier he uses when he gets cold. Just turn on sprit that in a spritz bottle, and then maybe a bag of a couple termites just to see what happens.
All right. All right. Well, we'll keep our eyes out for Hartsville this weekend. Should be an awesome event to keep our eyes out for. Let's see. We also have Carrollton to look forward to for some more Georgia action going on this side of the border. We do have, let's see, I think this will be more notably Walton's second play for 2974. I think their alliance partner from the first win was 6340, if I'm not mistaken, who will also be at Carrollton. So we'll see if a re-team up occurs there for some Blue Banner buddies. Let's see, who else do we have that is on that notable list?
I want to highlight 5109 and where are they at? What was the other one? Oh, is it caffeinated? Yeah,
92-93.
encaffeinated for choosing to do a suicide schedule of back-to-back weekends. I mean, talk about unloading, reloading, and everything else in 1 week. That's gonna be rough.
Mhm.
Well, I mean, we're gonna be in their basket in a couple weeks, Brian, going 5-6 with making a district champs.
Right, but at least we're getting a week break to try to improve our robot, right? And so
But
as
they
it
get
goes,
2 weeks between their second event and district champs, Brian. They're smarter than us.
yeah, I'm not looking forward to this run. It's 3 events in 4 weeks. It's gonna be tiring, but at least it wasn't as bad as 4188 back in 2016, where they did 3 events in 3 weeks, and one of them was a regional in the middle.
Mhm.
Mm.
Yeah, that can be rough for. I think there's always in the past there used to be this idea for like more events is better, but at some point, I think once Bag went away, or that you now had access to your robot the full time,
Yeah.
is that shop time is incredibly valuable for
Yeah.
Right.
that. The value of going to another event kind of fades a bit for.
Yeah,
You don't
I'm
have to
looking
buy
forward to
your
see
time to
how
work anymore.
4189 improves. They had a really good showing at Anderson, and they'll be in there. I'm curious if they can look at doing a good showing. And I would sort of expecting in that will be the lead dog there, and see if they can't 4189 can show well and maybe make a run.
Who are
Mhm.
some other notables that'll be there?
Yeah, I'm trying to think of how many teams are going to both of these events for having it be a comparable to your South Carolina situation of
Of 2-4?
of how similar of a event it'll be for.
832
Yeah.
was at Dalton. 1311 was at Dalton. Walton was at Dalton. 3815 was at Dalton.
Oh.
4026 was at Dalton.
So
A lot of these
Team
guys were at
Clutch
Dalton.
also in the back-to-back. We're not taking a break.
Okay.
Yeah, it's almost. I'm guessing probably
So
90%
this is
of
Dalton
those.
Park?
Yeah, it's gonna be a repeat of Dalton, just like the Macon's gonna be a repeat of Gwinnett for a lot of it.
Okay.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, once you pick your 2 weeks, it's it
Yeah,
makes sense for
people
the,
like a
the
break in
spacing.
between.
I mean,
But yeah. Hopefully these teams have spent their last couple of weekends well, for having a little bit of a breather before their second play here. But yeah, it's always interesting to see what those iterations look like coming into a second play. But some exciting matches to look out for. I think I have to imagine Walton's going to have any expectation coming into this weekend to maintain that undefeated record. So we'll see if they can hold on to that. I did know a couple of their mentors were at Gwinnett this past weekend, but had mentioned that they had gotten, I think, some path planning working. So I'd imagine we'd see some more refinement coming out of their autonomous modes.
yeah.
So expect that ceiling to go up for that Walton team.
And Firestorm Robotics had a great showing at Dalton, and how's they go?
Okay. So
Alrighty.
it's Walton and the crew.
Yep,
Mhm.
pretty much.
Yeah,
It's
and
always
All right.
that's where it might be more of a competition to see who gets to play with Walton, and that's where
Right. Yes.
we'll see if 6340 holds on to that spot, or if somebody else is able
Right.
to.
Just a performance review for
or the scenario where a team ranks higher than Walton. In 2019, that 4026 at Dalton winning that race to get to pick Walton is very, very. So it'll be interesting to see if that happens.
I think it's going to be rough to outschedule Walton on that aspect. I mean, in 2019, the level 3 climb was pretty much almost a guaranteed ranking point, and
Yeah.
Global just nailed it out of the park. Where they were like, "We're going to climb at the end and play D," and they rank 1. And I think this game's a little bit different than that.
Well, yeah, it's
Yeah.
gonna be. It looks like it's gonna be hard to jump all. And they were 33 rank points at their first event. The next one team was 27, and then it went down to 21. So somebody's going to have to step it up to pass Walton with that kind of rank point performance.
Yep. Agreed. So yeah, another awesome event to keep our eyes open for. But I think moving into some more interesting discussion, which will involve a lot of teams we talked about so far, that we'll have some chit chat about who we view as a PCH pit crew, about what are the top 5 robots in PCH, as well as a little bit of conversation about some robots that are outside of that top 5 that have at least some possibility, if they make the right changes or tweaks and tunes to the robot, to have any potential to jump into that top 5. But we'll and these teams are a little bit easy to pick out if you've been watching matches. But we'll start counting up from 5 just to keep our number 1 spot a little bit more dramatic. But at our number 5 spot, we have 4188, the Columbus Space Program. With their 2 matches under their belts, they're looking a lot more polished and refined than they did in their first couple matches. We know what that's like on Team Auto for seeing the robot looking a lot different than the one you started with. But the robot looks the same. It's just all the tweaking and tuning for programming and getting practice. So well done for that 4188 crew, especially on being the 2nd overall pick and event winner this past weekend.
And then at number 4,
Hold on. Howard, cover your ears.
No, I think Howard.
Howard
okay,
can listen.
Howard can listen.
3 students cover your ears. That's what you.
And to be fair, Howard, we only have you guys at 4, so there is room for growth here. So yes, at number 4 we have Team 1683, the Techno Titans. They kind of have the inverse graph of 4188, won their first event and then finalists at their second event. That being said, they are still their robot at the second event was just so much better than what we saw at Albany. And I only look forward to seeing their growth. I think, but looking at the scouting data that we have from that event, I think the biggest room for them to grow is in autonomous, and they are looking forward, and they are, I believe they are looking at improving that through their time at DE and various other resources. Anyone brave enough to give number 3? Nope, I'll do it again.
I mean, I'll take it if you don't mind.
All right,
They're a local team to me. We've worked together very, very extensively in the past. 4509. They put up a great show at Albany, and when they came to Gwinnett, you could definitely see they had really solid control of their machine the entire time. It was incredibly elegant.
Yeah, I think there's a lot to be said. Obviously, having a high ceiling is nice, but the consistency, that's a whole nother thing. And I think one of the biggest things to admire in a robot throughout a season is getting anywhere close to your ceiling and maintaining instead of just showing brief glimpses of it every now and then. So yeah, awesome robot for this 4509 crew. Again, I think like Thomas said for 1683, it's trying to milk as many points as you can out of that match for looking. I think one of the bigger areas of growth, I think, would also be autonomous modes. So it'll be interesting to see what they can pull off there as well. I'll take number 2 here. I guess what's interesting is that the teams we have at 3, 4, and 5 have all done their second place. Our teams at 1 and 2 have only played once so far. So we'll see if they can elevate. There's not much room to elevate their standings within PCH. I guess it would be a matter of separation from the rest of the field, as well as trying to make any name for themselves in the general sphere of first rather than just PCH. But at number 2, we have 1102, Making Magic from South Carolina. This is a robot that came out week 2 with a. I'm trying to remember, David. Did they ever do a 3-piece auton, or did they get like the 2.5?
No, they did 3.
But yeah, they've had their foot on the gas since early on, and they've had time to work on it. So get ready for what they come in with this weekend, and as well as then having another week off before district champs. To keep that foot on the gas and find those improvements. They're one of the more aware teams out there for what else is going on in the larger sphere of first. So I'm sure they're making changes.
Yeah, I'm expecting again more automation out of them. Even though they were the most automated robot that was at Anderson event, I'm expecting more. They have already iterated their robot before they showed up to Anderson. They're still working on more. They are way underweight. They've got lots of stuff they can do. I don't have no insight to what they are doing, but don't look at the stats. They can put up some numbers.
Which, and I think has to do with that any of the learning curve throughout an event. But it'll be interesting to see, like I had mentioned before, that consistency that they're able to hold is going to be the real thing to brag about as the season goes on. Because again, if you're hitting the high ceiling, but it doesn't happen at the right times, that might mean some losses during district championship eliminations.
Correct.
That if you the teams that are going to do well there are going to be the ones that can do it the most consistently.
Yes.
So
and they're
keep your eyes out for these guys as they keep improving.
Oh yeah.
But at number 1, we have 2974 Walton Robotics out of Marietta, Georgia. Again, this is a robot that's only competed once so far. We've seen them have some struggles, I think, in autonomous mode for how slowly they're moving out of the gate. Again, I had mentioned a little bit of path planner trouble. But even with that, I think we wind up seeing a pretty high ceiling for this robot, and that they're already doing incredibly well with it on how elegantly they're driving to and from the opposite side of the field. This is a team that's flying over the charging platform, cycling, that it really opens a lot of doors for traffic patterns, that you're not just constraining yourself to the 2 narrow windows on the sides of that platform. So some awesome strategy there by Walton. But as they get this thing ironed out for, again, the automation, getting those autonomous routines figured out, this is another team that has a significant amount of room for growth, and we're already counting them as one of the top robots in PCH. So you're going to have to keep your foot on your team's gas pedal if you want a chance at keeping up with these guys, because I guarantee you they're not complacent. So this is who we currently have on our top 5. I will say that while putting this list together, there are a handful of teams outside of this top 5 that have put together really impressive seasons already. That I think as the season goes on, as we see these last couple district events happen, that have a real shot of hopping into this top 5. Who do we think are some of those teams, and what improvements might they need to be making to have a shot at kind of bumping into that top tier?
I personally think that 6919 is underrated. And I don't know how they didn't make it on this list, much to my chagrin. I'm definitely really high on them. I think they've got a fantastic program. I mean, they worked with 1683 to beat 4509, and then 1683 played with 4509 and didn't win their event. So I think they are definitely a really, really great team, really deserving to be on this list. And I think they are ones who their next event is in Macon. So we'll be able to get to see them in person. So I think they are going to be a really tough team to beat.
Yeah, I think the game is evolving. Some of the week 3 bots are continuing to get better. I will point out that 1771 and 4188 beat 4509 and 1683 this past weekend, right?
Right.
So I think 1683 and 4509 need to keep their foot on the gas. there are definitely some people knocking on the door to try to claw their way into those top 5.
Yeah, so I'll since it is 0, I'll talk about 1771 for just a minute. So obviously, we like 1771 are what I call the team handoff, right? Vacuum off the floor and then hand off inside the robot, and getting that coordination just right is tricky. But I have all faith that they will do that. So and they have a lightning fast, super lightweight arm. So I'm expecting them to come violently out of their next event, and will not have any handoff issues because their whole design is based on picking up off the floor and handoff. That is our strategy as well, is a pick up and a handoff, and I think theirs will end up being a lot more elegant when in the final product.
I'm hoping for it. You can't see, but I am knocking on wood.
The robot drive base?
Unfortunately, not here with me.
You guys like a one part of it, don't you? No, I think you'll work out the handoff. I have no doubt. It's just when you do, oh geez, you already won an event, limping, and so
I will say just barely.
Well,
that was a tight set of finals matches.
It was very exciting. I enjoyed watching them, but nonetheless, play the robot you got at the time, and put together the alliance you need, the balance you need between the partners, and to magnify their strengths. I saw I saw one event where because I used to play with a lot of teams from Tennessee, obviously, and and Florida and whatnot, and so I was watching a lot of other events, and I saw several alliances that just were not the right. They're good robots, but they were not the right pairings for each other. They're playing the same game in the same spot, and that's just not a good deal. So
yeah, we were hoping, crossing our fingers that
balancing that act.
Yeah, we were hoping we might be anywhere on the 1771's radar, but it became more evident as qualifications went on that they were a cube specialist, or were much more confident with cubes. I'll put it that way. And we were. I don't think we touched a cone the entire weekend for having our own indexing issues. So,
and if we did, it was unintentional.
Yeah, we probably would have been better to leave the cones alone.
Yeah, risky business. But yeah, I think it's the difficulty of that handoff process to be able to handle both pieces elegantly and consistently for that alignment. So I'm really curious to see what y'all come up with for solving that problem. The other thing I mentioned to you before the show, but want to just mention for your team members, and I'm sure you're aware of this, but yeah, the other kind of bottleneck I noticed as cubes, primary cube scorers, was then going into the loading station kind of nose first for kind of blocking off the view of the cube. That there was a lot of tentative approach of the cube for not kicking it too far into the corner, out of reach of your intake, but you're kind of going in blind. So I think we did the same thing for not necessarily picking up cubes the same way, but liking the idea of picking up one side and scoring out the other. But I think that's just it seems like a good idea, but you're doing it blindly on the other side, where I think the teams that are picking up off the wall kind of get that advantage of more visibility of where the game piece is and where their claw's at. Whereas if the game piece is on the floor, the robot kind of blocks the view of it. So curious to see how you guys handle the cone handoff for making that more consistent, as well as speeding up that cube cycling, because I think, again, just like a lot of these teams we've mentioned so far, there's a lot of room for growth, and hopefully we see that carbon fiber arm whizzing around a lot more in the future. So
yeah, looking at this top 5, what I will say is who's not going to fall out, right? And I guess 1102 and 2974, I'd be surprised if they fall out. So there's not really a lot of slots up there, right? So I think the people that can come in there is not that many.
District champs are going to be crazy.
I think, if anything, the list just starts getting expanded to be a top. At some point we're just gonna go, it's a top 6 list now.
No. It's less about the amount. It's less about the amount of teams and the amount of teams in a specific tier. If there are any teams that separate themselves to say, oh well, we have 3 game piece autons and we can play just as many game pieces in teleop, but you don't have that we'll see how many teams wind up falling in that second tier of scoring just as many game pieces, but maybe not having a really consistent auton or multiple piece game auton, to see kind of where those rankings shake out and who's able to pair up with who.
Yeah, top five won't matter. What'll matter is hot take. Right? Top five won't matter. What'll matter is does this pair of robots play well together in the loading zone? Period.
Yep.
So you're going to have a strong alliance that can do multiple game pieces in a ton and have a balance going, right? That's a minimum buy-in. But then how do you play the game, and where are you playing the game, and are you compatible with each other? If you've got two wall loaders, you're toast. Now I've seen wall loading alliances do well, but how many of us are citrus circuits and those kind of level teams to play where one comes in and grabs and leaves, the other one comes in and grabs and leaves, and they're not delaying anything. They're not like lining up slow. So if you're in there at the wall slow, you're slowing down your other partner if you got a wall loader.
You're
So you're going to have to find that marriage, if you will, of who's compatible.
What was that, Brian?
The other marriage you're going to have an issue with is two people using the side loading. So does somebody load from the top, right, and get in the way of a floor loader like myself? That could be another bad matchup.
Yeah, we had some pre-match strategy conversations all about that. Is like, all right, where do you get game pieces from? Oh, well, we both get them from the human loader. Like, all right, let's have both of our human players over there and drop them in at one at a time. But in that situation, it's about getting in and out as fast as possible. Otherwise,
it's a hot, man.
Yeah, exactly. Yep. So, and that's something you kind of got to work around for quals, but obviously get a bit more choice in for your alliance selection if you're a captain.
Just think through it. It's not just who's putting up the most game pieces, but who's compatible with you while they're doing it.
Greater than the sum of your parts, I think.
That's why 1102 and us played well. I mean, they were wall loading, we were floor loading, and we never got in each other's way.
Gotcha.
That's the other nice part, is being able to select your alliance station. So just say, all right, we know we're cycling on the outside over the bone.
True. Right.
Y'all take the inside lane.
Yep. But that's another advantage of first allowing us to do that in playoffs. That's very nice.
Yep. With that being said, I just got word we've hit our hour goal.
Okay.
Do we have any more final thoughts before we head out for the night?
Well, any other teams you think will crack that top five or have a shot at it? I think 14-14 is another one on that list. I think they had a high ceiling, I think, but I think again consistency is the name of the game for that iHot robot, to see if they can't do it just time and time again and get higher up in that regard. Let's see.
And
I think Ignite's another interesting one, just for having capability of being able to score both game pieces with good consistency. Again, curious to see what they come up with for improvements, as well as balancing an auton, that they're another solid robot. But again, it's going to take something substantial to kind of elevate that game of, all right, do we have a 2 game piece auton? How do we really improve that cycling time? But yeah.
So here's a piece of interesting news. Guess who's coming to DE at Walton in April, first weekend? Who do you think might come there? Let me ask you this.
Walton.
Who do you think would not be coming there?
Walton.
No. Columbus is coming to Walton's DE.
Wait, don't they have a DE field?
That's what I'm saying. What? You don't have your own DE? Did somebody schedule it from you?
I wanted to check what the party in North Georgia was all about.
Yeah.
Do some recon, perhaps.
And this is the weekend. This is the
Predictive
weekend
alliance.
of Macon, right?
Well, that being the case, I've told my drive team before when Walton was maybe closed due to them being a competition. I'm like, hey guys, it's only a 2-hour drive to Columbus. We'll go there if we need to practice, if we have to.
We did get down to Columbus in 2017, I think, and that was, I forget if that was pre-IRI. Do you remember, Thomas? I'm trying to remember.
I don't know. I didn't make that trip. I was
So,
I think I was at the beach with my parents.
yeah. I just
Oh
got-
yeah, we did make it down there as while they were preparing to go to Festival of Champions.
Yeah.
That's right.
So I just got pinged just during the middle of this thing, asking like, "How do you reserve?" I'm like, "What?" I just don't have teacher access during that weekend. So
Gotcha. Yeah, you gotta
There-
use your resources, even
there-
if they're a couple hours away.
exactly. That's how they can move up that list. I'm being top 5, right?
Mm-hmm. But yeah, again, lots of exciting and interesting things to look forward to in the PCH season. Keep working on those robots. Don't get complacent, 1683, if you're out there, or anybody else for that matter. We look forward to seeing those iterations and
Yeah.
changes y'all are making to your robots to push.
Yeah, and
push
I'm
the
shooting, I
limits.
guess I'm shooting for number 6.
You're another one on that list, David. So we're looking out for you in that automation.
Hang out here down at 6 to 10 range.
No, yeah. But yeah, excited to see those automations you mentioned and see if you can't close the gap there. So,
Yeah,
but with that being said, I think we'll go ahead and get wrapped up. We'll be back next week for some more shenanigans and some more reviews and previews as we close in on our eventual district championship in week 6. But until then, PCH, we'll see you next time.